Hello, welcome to this inspiring money story. It's yet another one in our series. And today I have a very special guest again. Betsy Jensen is here with us today. And Betsy is a fellow coach and she really specializes in pain. It's such an interesting work that you do with clients, and especially in the mindset realm when it comes to the physical body.
Yes.
So, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, actually. Can you tell us a little bit about, your work and how you got into it?
Yeah, absolutely. I got into coaching first during my divorce. And even backing up, I was a psychology major and then I went to physical therapy school and was a physical therapist for 20 years. So I've always loved the mind and the body.
Mm-hmm.
I found coaching first. And then during my divorce, had a lot of physical symptoms, autoimmune. And fortunately, just was around the right people, serendipitously, who told me those kinds of things are psychosomatic, which I was pleased to hear. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
Some people are like, don't tell me that. But I was like, because I already knew the power of thoughts. I knew the power of thoughts to create your reality in business, in love, with money. And then to find out from my physical therapy background that so much of your body can be changed by your thoughts. Like it just resonated with me. It made so much sense. And then I got really excited about it. And so my condition healed and I put it and, doing physical therapy with people. It was surprising to realize that stress would make their symptoms worse.
Yeah.
And that was kind of an in, but still, not everyone wants to talk about that when they're coming for physical therapy. But I noticed the people I did talk to, I would be like energized afterwards. I'd get like on this high. And so even though I loved physical therapy, and actually most of the time I was working with babies and families, I loved that. But I was like, this is something that lights me up. I'm passionate about it. I want to learn about it in my spare time. I want to talk to people about it. And it energizes me. So I'm like, okay, that was it. And so I can even tell you kind of that first manifesting story, because this is when it all started. I learned about mind body and pain reprocessing, the power of thoughts with your body, the same time I learned about law of attraction. So I learned about John Sarno, who wrote this book, Divided Mind, that included my diagnosis in it. So I was like, okay, this is definitely mind body. I can heal it. And then Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural. I think I listened to that 8 times in a row, just on repeat, and just like wanted to saturate it into my cells. I'm just like, I want to absorb this information. And then I found The Secret at the same time. And that's when I started noticing these checks in the mail. And it's funny because the audiobook, she's Australian. So she'd say it like chicks in the mayo, like chicks in the mayo.
Yeah.
And so I had this friend and we'd be like, another chick in the mayo.
I know exactly what you mean. I grew up in Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun. And so, and they were like obscure things. It would be like a $7 overpayment from my pediatrician's office 5 years ago. And but 3 a week would come sometimes. And so it was right when I was, getting into all of this stuff. So I was like, no coincidence there, I'm sure. But it just showed to me that like money is out there, your money. It's like, that was money owed to me. And as soon as I started opening up to receiving it, like it just started coming to me in these little ways here and there.
Right.
Yeah. So I was also like, one of my favorite tricks was because, you want to get into the feeling of abundance, which is really hard when you're in scarcity, going through a divorce, asking your parents for money every month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would look for money on the ground, just coins. And every time I would see a coin, I'd be like, oh, this is the universe telling me like, money is coming to you. Money is easy. It's always around you. It's like, I'm even getting like a little emotional feeling it, because it's like, it was such a pivotal way for me to shift. And I still to this day just like get so excited finding coins. And I even found I sat down on this roller coaster and next to me, there's like a penny wedged in the roller coaster that goes upside down. I'm like, how does this, how did I sit in this very one?
Yeah.
But, most people, maybe there are coins around and they just don't get excited about it, but it added that feeling of being in abundance, being loved, things are going to be okay into my day every time that would happen. And so, that's the kind of stuff you need to do to shift your momentum.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
I can so relate with the coins
oh,
on
wait.
the street.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I went through a phase actually of like reading about the signs and the importance of finding coins on the street and not like kind of, dismissing any abundance that comes from the universe. And,
Wow.
living in London and it's a busy city here. And at first I would be like, oh, someone's going to see me picking that up. What are they going to think? I can't do that. And eventually over time, I just got to the point where I don't care.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there would be a full train
Yeah.
and there would be like a penny in the middle of all these people standing. And as soon as they all got off, I was like, right, I'm in there getting it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm totally the same. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I felt that same too, because I'm like in a drive-through. I like opened my door and reached down and get a coin that fell on the ground.
Absolutely.
But I'm also like,
Absolutely.
I thought of that as a practice of like an example of, receiving what's out there for me and just being willing to do what it takes to receive it,
Yeah, that's true. That's a little bit of a sign, really, isn't it? You're kind of like affirming to the universe, yes, I'm ready. Yes, I'm willing.
Yeah. It's like providing it for you. And you're like, no, I'm too embarrassed versus like, I don't care. Look at this. It's fun for me to pick up this dime. And I actually, what I do now, it's so fun is I kind of ask myself what coin I'll find next. And so, and even like, as I'm asking myself that question, it comes to me like dime or penny. And like 90% of the time, I think I'm right.
Amazing.
And so that's my little fun game to be like, I think I'll find a dime and then a penny next. And like within that day, finding that. So
that
cool.
is very cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I know I found some really random stuff literally at the front of my house. I live in a block of apartments and one time, so over here in the UK, I don't know if you know these distinctions outside of the UK, but in Scotland, they have their own currency and it's meant to be legal tender that you can use it anywhere. If you're in England, if you're in Ireland, like Northern Ireland, you could use it. But actually the shops are a bit funny about it. So if you have a Scottish note, it's actually really hard. But I ended up finding a Scottish £10 note, I think it was, out the front of my house, which was just bizarre.
Yeah.
And then before we went to France on holiday to go and see some family this year, I found a €10 note, just before my holiday.
Nice.
I was like, that is so cool.
That is so cool.
Yeah, very random. But what I've done now is I've got this beautiful ornate mug. I searched for it for a long time because I saw this concept in a Facebook group. So if anyone's getting into this story, I'll just share this as just a little aside because you might like this. And it's like the idea is that you have something that visually represents that your cup is overflowing. And so I found this beautiful, beautiful mug. And every time I find money from the universe, I put it in there. And so over time, it's just become really full and it kind of spills over into the saucer. And it's just a beautiful kind of reminder, like, I'm always supported and there's always lots of abundance out there that I found. And look at all that evidence that I've got right there, I love that. So that's a nice little thing. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So I'm curious to know, well, actually, let's go back to the start if that's okay. So it sounds like you got into all of this or this work came and found you at a time in your life where there was a lot of scarcity going on. So what was it like for you before this work found you?
I think I was just kind of the regular person living from their fear-based survival states and kind of just living from my primitive mind most of the time. And for me, I think what led me to this work by, causing the symptoms in my body basically was I was very critical of myself. I was, I always liked self-improvement, but I was a little bit perfectionistic about it. And I, just thought I just wasn't ever doing a good enough job. And I'm a mom of 4. So I was always like, I'm just not a good enough mom. And you know what I mean? Since I worked as a physical therapist and was a mom, I already couldn't really be a good mom. And then my brain found evidence for that. And so I was kind of living in this, at one point I was even just like, I think something might be wrong with me that I'm just not happy more. I remember even telling my husband at the time that I was like, maybe something's just wrong with me chemically or like, what I mean, my brain, because I think I should be happy more than this.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always like that. I had a lot of joy with my kids and things like that. But like, as I look back, like those years are tinged with kind of like this scarcity, unworthiness,
Yeah.
fear, and then those survival states. Now that I know about the nervous system, I
Yeah.
was really in a lot of flight, which is perfectionism, being busy
Mhm.
all the time. I was like making lists in my head of what I would do to go to sleep at night. Like that's how I
Yeah.
relaxed, is like to make lists of what I would do the next day,
Yeah.
and then a
Been
lot
there.
of fun, like people pleasing. I just grew up in a like religious
Mhm.
community. I'm in Utah. And so like there's
Yeah.
just a lot of like, what would the neighbors think, and
Yeah.
just a lot of fun, and making sure I'm being good, and that ultimately was putting so much stress on my nervous system that my
Mm.
digestion shut down. And so the autoimmune that I had was, my basically my GI system,
Yeah.
ulcerative colitis. And so now it's so good because now that's my barometer. Now that it's healed, when I
Mm.
do start to get some GI distress, instead of thinking like, well, what did I just eat? And like never eating that again out of fear, I'm like, oh, nervous
Mm.
system, like how can I soothe you? What's going on? Like
Yes.
it's more like my body symptoms, and this is what I teach people, become your thermostat or your barometer of
Mm.
if you're in alignment or not, basically.
Yes. Yes. Amazing.
Yeah.
And so you went from a place where you were often criticizing yourself and being quite perfectionist and people pleasing and being very busy. And then
Mhm.
how did that change when all of this work found you and you were, diving into Joe Dispenza and The Secret and
Mhm.
Divided Mind, all of that? Like how did things change internally for you?
Mhm. Yeah, I love that question because even thinking of like those early days 5 years ago versus now, I can see how that's evolved. So it's just been kind of almost like this softening and unwinding of some of those old thought patterns at the primitive, survival level, like
Mm.
subconscious level, by learning about the nervous system and regulating the nervous system. But when I started the work, I was a little more gung ho, and like, I was coming at it from, it was a really good energy, but I was like, there's so much to learn and I want to learn it all. And I still kind of put pressure on myself. From where
Mm.
I was, it was a softening. But as I
Mm.
look back now, I'm like, yeah, I was still really intense. Gradually, as I did this work, I realized like it's almost more of like going from that masculine energy that we're kind of trained to be in to more of a flow, a feminine energy of like
Mm.
trusting that things will get done in my creative capacity. I became a coach, and so now I have this free schedule, but that can also be really hard when you're, trying to manage things, and am I doing enough, and just
Yeah.
trusting that like I'll have the inspiration I need when I need it, and really focusing on how I want to feel, and just all that vibrational stuff. It's
Mm.
become so much easier now to live my
Mm.
life because I don't, like, for example, a podcast interview. I might, even
Mhm.
when I started this the night before, be going over in my head what I might say, and,
Mhm.
am I prepared? And
Yeah.
now I just have so much trust. I have trust with time, a lot more. I'm not all the way there. I have trust with my ability to say what I need to say. If I just tune into my intuition, if I can get to that,
Mm.
you know, calmer state to my nervous system, that's all I need to do. And then I know from there, I'll meet the right people, I'll say the right things. I just have that trust.
Amazing.
It's made life so much easier.
Sounds really like you've gone from a push energy into a kind of being led energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's still
Yeah.
a process. I don't want to make it seem like I'm like, transcendent all the time, because I do.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much those fear-based emotions come up when you're evolving.
Mm.
You know what I
Mm.
mean? That's what I
Absolutely.
attribute it to, is like, okay, my nervous system adapts, and then I put myself out there to lead a group of 100 people, and then my
Yeah.
nervous system adapts, and then you know what I mean? I do a
Yeah.
post that's a little more vulnerable, or, so.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're always pushing the boundaries a little
Yeah,
bit. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it's like
Yeah.
so beautiful, but it's interesting because with my coaching, like, I became a coach and I had some really good success my first year.
Mm.
100K year is what, a lot of coaches idealize. And I had that my first
Mm.
year. I actually like had
Amazing.
some serendipities with some famous clients,
Yeah.
and um But then what is so interesting is I think I had this expand contract kind of thing where my nervous system wasn't ready for all of that. And then I, did some advanced certification by Bev Aaron. I did hers, and I just like had this, like, you're not good anymore. And my salary decreased. And what's so funny is the last 2 years, it's been what I was as a physical therapist. So it's kind of like that I really believe in that energetic, thermostat. I'm just realizing this.
Yes.
So, but I think the last 2 years, I've just been beautifully with flow and with ease, growing my nervous system and my capacity so that now, you know what I mean? Now, as it's growing, I don't have that fear of it just kind of like skyrocketing. And then what do I do with this?
Absolutely.
And it again.
So it sounds like you're doing it in such a sustainable way then. So you're ready for it. You know what to do with it. And I think that's, I'm going to struggle to remember the exact words from the Mel Robbins quote, but it's one I use a little bit because I love the way she describes manifestation. And she basically talks about how we are training our brain and adapting our nervous system essentially to operate at that level and to vibrate at that level so that when you receive it, you can actually hold on to it and you can maintain it, right? And it sounds like you're basically telling the story of something very similar to, say, what lotto winners do. They win the lottery and they're abundant and rich for a year, but they don't know what to do with it and it's all gone,
Exactly. It's so fascinating. But before we get too much into it, like, I do want to tell this really cool manifesting story, like my favorite one, because again, it was around the time that I was just finding out about this stuff and getting the chicks in the mayo. And then I went to my work evaluation, which I'd had every 6 months for like years since I worked there. So it was this evaluation. And because of all that was going on, I asked them, like, how could I earn more money? Like, what do you guys think? I was hoping they would just give me a raise, I was like, but what they did is they answered with an email and they said, like, you're at this many hours per week. And if you work this many, you'd get this much. Basically, what we figured out was they had me working 5 hours per week less than I had actually been working 2 years before. And I had an email that, yes, we're going to start you at this salary, but it was back when I was married. I didn't realize they never actually gave me the salary. So it added up to like 5 hours a week for over 2 years. And they actually back paid me. And it was like $15,000.
Wow.
It was a huge amount that I had no idea, again, that was out there waiting for me. Like, it was legitimate money that I'd actually earned. But I had no idea until I just like was open and inspired to ask that question. And and then and that was right around the time that I was, coach training was starting, and that was 18,000 right then. And so me getting 15,000 right at that time, it was just like a sign from the universe of like, do your coach training, girl. Like, this is just, the timing couldn't have been more perfect.
No, that is the way forward, isn't it? Yeah. And what was it that inspired you think? Like, what question did you ask? What nudge did you get in order to like have all of that happen?
Meaning all of that, meaning.
Yeah. So you were saying, like, I was inspired to ask that question. So what did the nudge look like? Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, what actually was going on, more of the context is, for those familiar with Life Coach School, they used to do this month where they would have a theme, and that month's theme was a dare of the day. And so each day in the month of June, I would dare myself to do something that was uncomfortable. And so, like, for me, like, wearing a tank top to work was super uncomfortable because I thought people would judge me and blah, blah, blah. So I like dared myself to do that month. And sometimes she would say, you could ask for something for free, and just, maybe they say no, but maybe they say yes. It's just more the idea of the dare. So what I was doing, as I see it now, is I was like stretching my nervous system, stretch, not stress. So if it was like something super stressful, I wouldn't do it, right? Like, I wouldn't go ask for a whole meal for free, but I might ask for like a free drink. as part of the meal or something, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think I only did that once, but that was still a little much. But so that day, you know, my performance review was coming up. So I was like,
Mhm.
what, you know, what do I want to do for my dare of the day? And so it was just a pretty like intuitive thing of like, hey, just ask it. I really thought in my
Yeah.
head, like maybe they would just give me a raise, but you know, like I
Right.
said, but you know, either way, like that, this was even better, like 15
Yeah.
grand a lump payment. It was
I
amazing.
know. That's amazing. And it sounds like, what you're describing is that nudge that we get sometimes, like you think that you're manifesting the end result, like and you are in a way, right? You are manifesting money, but sometimes it takes that little hit of inspiration, that idea that downloads, and it's like, ooh, I should try that. I should pick the phone up and call this person. I should go to this event, or you're going into work that day. I should ask for a raise. I should ask about more money.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, these are the signs also to look out for
Yes.
on our manifestation journey, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have found that, as I look for those things, you do notice them more. And it ties in with the body work I do, because it's a body feeling usually that I get in addition to like a thought, right? Because I might have a thought and it's constrictive and fearful versus a thought and it's like expansive. And those are the ones I want to do. And it's usually like, call this person, or, you haven't thought of that person in a while. And then, you see them at the store or something, it's just like those serendipities happen more and more as you're looking for them and doing this work.
Absolutely. It's almost like, funnily enough, you manifest them more, because you're
Yeah,
looking for them, you expect them, and you
exactly.
start to know and you get familiar with what they are and, what they're not.
Yeah.
And then they show up everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know sometimes when I don't get like a close parking place, I'm like, oh no, is my alignment off today or something?
Yeah,
Because I'm
I
so
think that
used
too.
to like things working out for me, that when like I got a flat tire the other day and I was like, whoa, this happens, you know what I mean? Because I was like,
Absolutely.
but I try to not tie too much meaning to that, and but it is such a shift from where I was to like, oh my gosh, one good thing happened, versus like I could find several, little serendipities throughout the day, most days, because I look for it and I make it, you know what I mean? I have that story and it's fun for me. And other people might say, yeah, of course you found a coin. They're all over. But, for me, that story is like, no, the universe is giving me money. So
Totally. And you know what? They are all over, but not everyone sees them, right?
exactly.
So that's the fun thing, because we know they're there. We're waiting. They're waiting for us to find them. So we just
it's like little Easter eggs. Just
exactly. It's like a treasure hunt.
Treasure hunt. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I love that. So it's changed internally for you. Things have shifted a lot since you came into this work. It sounds like, your life has a lot more flow, a lot more ease. You've changed careers. You've been supported in that transition. And it sounds like also then your bank balance was really impacted as well. And so you went into coaching, you had $100K a year, your first year, and your nervous system's freaked out a little bit. So it's come down a little bit, but you're working through that. And you know what I love about that story as well? And I love the realness of it. It's not just this story of like, I was 6 figures and then I was 7 figures. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not the perfect linear story, but also you've got that evidence now that I can do this. Like I anytime I want, I'm a 6-figure coach. I'm just going to do it in a different way, but so that it's sustainable next time. But you can do it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
cool.
That's the main thing. I'm like actually just thinking of it energetically now. And that Amanda Francis book.
Yes. Rich as fuck.
Okay, I wasn't sure what to say. That's one that I've just been listening to over and over and over. And she really talks about that. That's where I was like, oh, ding, ding, ding. This makes so much sense. Kind of having like, you have this energetic minimum of what you make per month. And I have an energetic maximum. I kind of, it was up there. And then I was like, no, that's too much energetically. And I lowered it in my head. And so now, I am doing the, posts and putting myself, I'm doing things to, a free coaching session or things like that to, do some aligned actions, but it's also so much more energetic for me now of just like, I am the kind of coach that makes, it's a 10K month is my energetic minimum versus,
Lovely.
where it is now.
Lovely.
And I've just seen it climb, from like 3 to 6. So, I'm like,
Beautiful.
yes.
Yeah. Really, really nice. I love those energetic minimums and maximums because, you've just got that range and it just gives you that comfort. So, it's
Yeah.
amazing if it's at the top end of the range, but it's really nice even if you just get to the lower end of the range,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's helped me relax so much. Like I said, I've been working on like the time scarcity and stuff too. And
Yeah.
I really used to feel just a lot of dread every single day, like I'm not doing enough. And now I just have this belief, like I'm doing a video a day right now. And if I do, just whatever I'm inspired to, honestly,
Mhm.
I've just
Yeah.
seen so many times where I make a post at a certain time and, it hits the right people and it goes viral or
Yeah.
I get a client from it. And I just see that I don't have to like hustle and work hard
Yes.
every day. And when I
Yes.
press that flow, like I just wake up and I have so much more peace of like, I can play like 80% of the time and 20% of
Yeah.
the time do this aligned work. And I will make several $1,000s a month
Yeah.
easily. You know what I mean? And it's just growing.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, definitely. I think that's such a big sign as well, isn't it? That when we're feeling that resistance and it feels like it's really hard and we push and we show up anyway, it's
Mhm.
not necessarily going to be the right energy to
Yeah.
act from. And even if it does succeed, like you find clients, you find that there's money in the bank, are they the right clients? Is it the work that you want to do? And I've been in that and I've burnt out before in one of my previous businesses and I worked as a kinesiologist. So kind of
Oh,
similar in terms of
nice. No
the
way.
mind body side of things and seeing
Totally.
people in a physical environment and
Ah,
doing physical work. Yeah.
totally.
And, and I had some amazing clients, but I also had some that really stressed me out
Yeah.
actually. And it wasn't aligned work and I got very, very burnt out. So, although I did see the financial success metric, it didn't have the other success metrics that I wanted really. And I needed deep down. So
Mhm.
it's important.
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I've just realized like growing it that way, like you said earlier, is so much more sustainable. Um, and predictable, and that's safe for your nervous system to be like, oh, okay, I don't even know exactly where the money's coming from, but I've just seen there's this energetic minimum, so at least I know from what I'm doing
Yeah.
with integrating a lot of soothing to my nervous system, playing, having fun. Like I really feel like that's a lot of what is missing from my being able to be more creative. And so saying that's just part of my work, part of my work is to go to the park or to go to an amusement park
Nice.
because
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
film content from there or whatever, but just aligning myself is the number one thing, and then doing my work from there
Yeah.
and doing as little as possible.
Yeah. I love that. Part of my work is to go to the park.
It is. Yeah, right.
Gold.
Play
Yeah.
is how I work.
Yeah.
Play is part of how I work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that. Um, so I am curious to know then how do you bring these manifestation practices into business? Do you them into business and what do you do?
Oh, yeah, that's such a good question. I've done some different things. I'll tell you one thing I did earlier on, and I did actually revisit it again, but like earlier on, I was really into journaling and,
Mm.
I was in the more like action phase of
Mm.
learning about all this stuff and really, so I had this 4-question process and I have a notebook full of these things that I was doing this, page a day. And it was basically, I'll credit Elizabeth Salazar is the one who put those questions together. She called it the
Mm.
daily work.
Yeah.
And it was like, what is it that I want to manifest in a week? And you would write that out. And I was doing it for clients. So I was like, one $6,000 client or something like 6 months,
Mm.
$6,000 client. Or, 3 in 2 weeks or whatever. It was like, I would have a goal and then you would write down. So imagine and be writing down exactly how you would feel. And I would notice as I was feeling that, sometimes I would even have some ideas of how I got it. Cause I'd be like, I'm so glad I have this client. She's perfect for me. I'm glad I put that post on, this group or whatever.
Mhm.
And so then I'd be like, oh, maybe I'll try that.
Yeah.
So I would just feel into it as much as I could as I was writing, which we know is, vibrationally what we want to do is have that emotion of it. And then the next question is like, what does your mind believe are the blocks, or like, why wouldn't this happen? I can't remember exactly the phrasing, but it's like,
Yeah.
What does your brain bring up as obstacles to achieving this? And so I'd be like, and it would be so funny because my mind, I'd be like, no one wants 6 months. And then I'd get a 6-month client, and then I'd be like, it's too expensive for people, and then they'd pay that. And then I'm like, well, there aren't 2 more people like that. And you know what I mean? Like my
That
brain,
was a
it would
fluke.
just
Yeah.
shift because
Yeah.
it had like 3 main things that it would shift around from. And then based on what it was seeing in reality, it would be like, okay, well, someone did want 6 months, but they're not going to want to pay that much for 6 months.
Right.
And then I'm
Right.
like, well, I've paid more than that for 6 months. So like, there are people that do that. So anyway, and then the last question is, you resolve all of those objections. So there's not anyone that would pay $6,000 for 6 months. I've paid that. So there's at least one person. And I've already sold it to 10 clients. So there's them. You know what I mean? Like your brain, it's like crazy how it kind of sticks to its old story of fear and scarcity, even despite the evidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if we don't like kind of educate our brain and manually look and search for that, it doesn't necessarily join the dots.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah,
It's
so
amazing.
crazy. And because I did that consistently, I bet I did it for like 6 weeks. I was just hardcore.
Yeah.
And that's when I had that 100K year. And, I mean, I think it did have a really good effect.
Yeah.
And then I think now I'm in the phase of just like, that seems a little more like a push kind of thing for me too still. Like I said, I did revisit it pretty recently, but I really have just lately, again, less is more kind of thing, been working on more of like tuning my vibration. And I actually did some coaching with Sarah Yost on money and the nervous system. And so she just did a lot of somatic coaching with me at that fear-based level of like how I would just go into this dread and like, think that things weren't working out when they were. And just having someone reflect back to me, like, you had 40 people come to that call and, oh, you had that. Like, it was like, I think it was like 8 weeks with her. And I felt like my just faith and my belief really shifted. And now I'm more, and the other thing I did, I'll just tell you, because like, I don't know how many people are coaches here listening or whatever, but what she had me do is an exercise, because I had started discounting and going to like 3 months instead of 6. And when you're working with the nervous system, it's really better to give people a 6-month container so that they're not rushed. Because like when I started trying to sell my 3-month things, I was like, most people have really good results, but some people, it would have been better if they did 6. So I was kind of like, my energy around selling had gotten really weird, because I was like, people want 3 months, people want 3,000. And then as I was coaching, I realized like 6 months is energetically what I feel best with, because then I can promise them that they're going to get significant changes if they spend half a year every single week with me, So, but I didn't feel like I could charge $6,000 for 6 months anymore, even though I'd sold over 20 packages of that in the past. So I started, she was like, what's like a no-brainer that you could start with? And I was like, 6 months for 2,800 is what came to me. So I like just have 2 or 3 spots. So I said, 3 spots available, over 50% off. And I sold, I think 2 within that weekend, and then 1 a couple weeks later. And then I was like, okay, I can sell 6 months for 2,800 easy. And then I was like, I don't feel quite right about 6 months for 6,000 still. I mean, I knew I could do it, but it felt so much easier to do 6 months for 4,000. So then I'm like, I have 2 spots, 6 months for 4,000. And I just sold my last one of those. So now I feel so good about my alignment with my price, that it's a great deal for people, even at 6 months for 6,000. So I know that wasn't exactly what you asked with manifesting, but it kind of, is like, it is, I guess, how I've been manifesting money lately, is more from this place of like aligning with, what I really believe works best for people, even if it is a higher price point and it is 6 months. I'm like, yeah, it is 6 months. You can do this work the rest of your life. 6 months is like at least, going to give you a minimum. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that story. That's very similar actually to a process that I did with a coach called Karina Gordon Barnes in the UK. And she used to call it resonant pricing. And so when you were trying to figure out your price point, you would have this scale and it's like, what's the lowest possible number you can ever imagine charging for whatever it is you're selling?
Yeah.
And then what's the highest number that makes you freak out and you feel sick at the thought of saying it? And then you kind of go up the scale. So like when you're thinking about the lowest number and then you're feeling into what your body is doing, it's probably going, oh no, that doesn't feel good, it's too much, too much of my time for too little exchange. And then you gradually go up and up and up to the point where it just feels like really nice, it feels expansive. And then when you see it start to constrict again, you're like, okay, no, I'm here at the moment. And so you can work in that kind of region for a little while and then just check in every now and then and see how your energy is shifting. It's a really lovely way, actually.
Love that.
I love that.
And it was fun to just be like, there's 3 spots. Like I knew I wasn't going to do that pricing forever.
Yeah.
It was fun to do it in that way. And I felt really, excited for the people that got such a good deal. And and then the other thing I do is just really like a lot of that visualization with emotion. And so this is, a lot from Amanda Francis, is just like imagining logging into my bank and seeing, $20,000 in savings or whatever. And she says you work your way up, but right now it feels more comfortable to imagine $20,000 in savings than like $1 million,
Yeah.
So it's like, but, times that you're really in flow. So like I go to the amusement park and I'm like, when I'm feeling super happy, I think of like those numbers, right? And logging in and credit card is 0 and bank account is this month, or I have Kajabi where it says it keeps track of my last 30-day sales. So like, imagining what number I want to see there.
Yes.
She even says like, I'll just say in orgasm or like, in a high like vibration state. And I also do like a lot of dancing where I get into that flow state. So I really train myself to start to think about the vibration of money when I'm in that flow state. And that seems to be more effective, or no, I wouldn't say more effective, but for me right now at the phase that I'm in, even the amount of work to do journaling every day seems a little more hustly, and this seems just more flowy.
Fair enough. I love that. There's so many manifestation techniques and processes out there, like literally hundreds, if not thousands. And, you can go with whatever feels right for you at this season of your life and mix and match.
Yes. And it will probably change. And it is good that it changes. And it's like, it's just this playground. It's this little science experiment that we're doing. And
yeah. Absolutely. I think, it all works. You've just got to, try a few things for yourself, keep what's working and throw out all the rest for now.
Yes, exactly. And it's so cool because that's just like the mind body stuff too. People are thinking like, I have to do these 5 things per day and I have to eat these certain foods and I have to exercise this certain way. But it's so much more about tuning into your body. As Abraham says, it's like really caring about how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Caring more about how you're feeling than, prioritizing other people above that. Like, that's like the basic of what it comes down to. And from there, really just making that priority about thinking thoughts that help you feel better, doing things that help you feel better, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's really like self-care and, giving your future self a bit of a gift as well when you're tending to your vibration like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I have one more question for you, if that's okay. So I think I saw a conversation somewhere on Facebook. It might have been in the Facebook community that was it you that was on a podcast yesterday? And there was a conversation about the nervous system and how that affects money and regulating your nervous system. I'm not sure whether it was around clients or whether it was around money, but what's your take on that? Because I think that's a really fascinating topic.
Okay. Well, I just had this realization last year. I just was listening to Abraham for several hours a day. It just made me feel better and didn't have a desire to take in more of the like science information and all the other podcasts, I was just like on this Abraham kick. And I started realizing that the way they describe alignment is exactly how they talk about the parasympathetic calm state of the nervous system. So, how they just talk about always getting into alignment, and that's the main thing to focus on. Turns out in mind body work, getting to that parasympathetic calm state more of the time is what you also focus on. So I'm like, there's so many correlations with everything Abraham's teaching and this mind body work. So for the nervous system, how it relates is basically like if you're in the lower vibrations, the fear-based emotions, those are the survival states. If you look at them in the description of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, they're all in those lower vibration emotions. And then when you look at the descriptions of the parasympathetic calm state, it's all those higher vibration emotions, like even neutrality and acceptance, on up to like joy and gratitude and all of those, like that is what you find. And that's the rest and repair state of the body. That's the state of you're actually using your prefrontal cortex the most. You're able to connect with people the most. Because think about it, if you're in fight or flight, you can't really connect with people. You can't have that inspiration to call someone when you're in that state of fight, right? Or flight. So if you're aligned, though, if you're in that parasympathetic calm state, that's when you can connect with people more. That's when you can learn better. It's where you have more creativity, more inspiration. And it's where your body heals itself and your inflammation decreases and your immune system is, strongest. So it's so cool. Like in that book, Anchored, the podcast you're referring to, we talk a lot about Deb Dana's book, Anchored, about regulating the nervous system. And she does talk about how those transcendent emotions, they've actually shown how those are shown to like decrease heart disease and decrease inflammation. Like the emotion of joy decreases inflammation. It's so crazy.
It's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely incredible.
And then I think you actually asked about how it relates to money, but like I see it as the same, like that receptive state is really what we need to do to earn money. It's not, it's more to receive money, to feel that worthiness, to act from those inspired actions. That's how, it's not a question of like getting out and like a work horse plowing the fields every day. It's more like attuning, aligning, and then, receiving. And that might look like calling a person or making a post, but it is more from that energy of just like trust that this is going to reach the right people. And I know who I want to reach and they're out there, you know what I mean? Versus just like, oh, I wonder if they'll like this. And, it's just more like,
exactly.
I have this, what did you say? Like being pulled or motivated versus like push.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you're being drawn towards. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love that. Cause it's like, it's really like talking to that kind of state that I've noticed when I take the time for myself and I upgrade my self-care. And it's almost like I am like making a statement, not only to myself, but also to the universe. It's like, no, I matter. So I am going to have a full lunch break. I am going to take this time to meditate. I am going to take time to go down to do my Pilates class and, not squeeze everything in. And then when I feel much more rested, much more centered, it's like I get the inspiration and then things land into my lap and the manifestation happens, so much easier. I'm just in flow. So sounds like that's kind of like what you're alluding to as well. That nervous system regulation.
That's exactly. In fact, I did, if you know Jess Lively, I did her course called Playtime. And that's where I learned, because I really wanted to learn to not have this scarcity around time. I'm like, okay, I can see how I've lost as much scarcity about money, scarcity about health conditions in my body and my weight, and freedom around food, but like it still felt like time was a real construct. So I did that Playtime, and that's where she talks about the workhorse that just plows the fields every day, and then versus what she calls the cheetah sloth. And so the cheetah sloth is like, you know how cheetahs are, they're the fastest land mammal, but they don't run all the time. They're not sprinting all the time. She's like, most of the time they're resting and they're playing and they're, eating and they're mating and they're, so it's like 80-20. So that most of the time you're playing, you're slothing around 80% of the time. And then when it's aligned, you have that cheetah-like inspiration where you can even sometimes work for hours, but it feels aligned and it's, not draining. And it's like those hours pass by and you're like, oh my gosh, cool. That was easier than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And
Total
really
flow state.
Sorry.
Yeah. Total flow state when you're like that.
Flow state. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm not saying like I'm perfect at it. I've been practicing over the last year and it's gotten so much better and so much more trust. But it was really scary to my nervous system to let go of all that control and trust that those flow states will happen and not to do the typical, what people say is just push yourself to do it, put it on your calendar, make yourself do it. And I've just really resisted that and, experimented with, if I just trust, if I play a lot of times the next day, I'm like ready to work,
Yeah. And I often find as well, if I take those signals and I actually do it, and unfortunately I'm a little bit like probably the old you that you're talking about sometimes. I've still got a little bit of that time scarcity going on. That's one of the things I'm trying to heal my relationship with at the moment. And like when I actually listen to myself and it's like, okay, I'm getting a bit tired now. I'm actually going to go and have a little nap or something like that. It just shifts everything, I just feel so much better.
Exactly. Yeah. I've just really leaned into that trust of like, because here's the thing, I already noticed, I don't know if you're like this, but a lot of people I talk to are like this. I was such a big procrastinator that I would want to do a post, but all day I would just be like putting it off, kind of like buffering. Maybe I'd be eating a lot of food or watching TV and just being like, okay, I got to do it. And then the last 20% of the day is when I would just like do it. And I can I know I can work really hard when I have a deadline. So I'm like, I think I'm already doing the 80-20, but like instead of 80% of the time playing, I'm miserable and I'm beating myself up and I'm, buffering and like doing stuff that doesn't feel really good. So I'm like, what if I could actually shift that 80% of the time to, going outside and going to parks more, going paddleboarding now that it's not, going to water and filming my things outside and you know what I mean? And just like when I do work, infusing it more with play and then infusing so much more play just into my life.
Amazing. Thank you for that recommendation. I'm going to go and look at Jess Langley's program. I've not
Just Lively.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yes.
This has been such a great conversation. We've
just
gone through all sorts of areas and I have loved it. So thank you so much for your time and sharing all that knowledge and that wisdom. And, if anyone here is experiencing pain, if they're experiencing, like chronic conditions or anything else that you said that might resonate with them, where can they find out more about your work?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I love to put my new content out on Instagram. I've been actually doing daily videos of just little topics each day. And then I put them on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. So it's either under Body and Mind Life Coach, which is my handle, Body and Mind Life Coach, or Betsy Jensen on Facebook. And then I do have a podcast called Unstoppable Body and Mind that you can find on any of the podcast platforms if you want to just hear more about this work. And some people are like, I don't even know what you mean by chronic pain, but my back hurts, a couple times a year. Like even that kind of stuff can be rewired. And then my website is bodyandmindlifecoach.com. And I do have some free nervous system modules as my free gift for people. So if you are interested in just kind of basics about what the nervous system is, the different survival states, how it affects your body, and how to regulate it, I have those free videos. It's about an hour and 20 minutes total of videos. And I'll give you that link for that.
Amazing. So we'll post all of these links underneath as well. And when this goes out on the podcast platforms, we're going to have it in the show notes as well. So fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. It has been a wonderful conversation.
Yes. Thanks so much for having me. I've loved it.
Brilliant.